Well, next up on the list, there's a song that Millennial Steve liked a lot. So we've got Romeo and the Lonely Girl next on the list.
This is another one of those Springsteen-y kind of songs. And
yes, absolutely.
Maybe that's why I like it then, because I like Springsteen a lot.
Yeah, Phil got some flack from critics for being a kind of a quote unquote poor man Springsteen back in the day.
Isn't Springsteen a poor man Springsteen? Like, isn't that the idea?
Oh, not anymore.
No, he's a millionaire Springsteen.
Right, but in terms of music for the poor man.
Well, that's not the
no, I know. I'm being
lesser than, right? The lesser than Springsteen, which I don't think is entirely fair. Phil. He had his own style, his own way of writing. He would approach things differently than Springsteen would. So that always makes me bristle a little bit. But there's no doubt that there's some similarities in their story. The fact that they're storytellers, and most rock songwriters are not storytellers in that way. But Romeo and the Lonely Girl is a great track. It does have, the one sour lyric on the record for me is just sitting all on his onio is pretty lame.
All right, I was ready for this.
No, that's terrible.
I'm stepping up to the bat. All right,
but,
have you heard Whiskey in the Jar?
Oh,
he's calling back to his Celtic roots and just sticking it in the song as if it were an old Irish pub folk tune.
Is that a common thing in Irish music, Greg? Yeah.
You can't.
I'd like to see some more
tacking EO at the end of words.
Yes.
Yeah.
Have you ever gone to an Irish pub and listened to a
show.
band play?
No, that's just an excuse. That's a port.
I don't know. I personally think it's great.
Line.
This is, man, the narrative of this song completely gets me. I think it's great. What a phenomenal solo in this track. Just everything about it is aces. And yeah, my wife was giving me shit for the chorus on this song. Like, I thought you were, complaining about bands with bad lyrics. Like, no, it's great. Lizzy's great. Stop it. This is fantastic.
It's super catchy. It's super catchy. It's just a little bit lame, but it's still a great chorus. There's one interesting thing. If you go, you've probably heard it, Greg, but if you go on YouTube and do a search for this track, you'll find a live version that is completely a different arrangement. It's way slower. It's more of a ballad. It was, I believe, recorded live after the record that came out. So I don't know if that's the way they were playing it live for a while, but it's really interesting to hear it in a kind of a completely different approach to the song. That's worth checking out for anyone who's at least a slight Lizzy fan. Go search on YouTube for.
I haven't heard, and I'm going to check it out, and I'm going to love it. It's going to be great.
Yeah. Scott Gorham introduces the song, which is unusual too. He wasn't really a big onstage talker, but it's cool.
This song for me, I was just going to say real quick that I actually think the lyrics of this song are super cheesy too, even though this is one of my highest ones, just because I think the melody is strong, and it's one of the easiest to listen to in general, just the flow. But yeah, the lyrics.
I think the lyrics are great. It's a great narrative. It's
Surprisingly, the pop punk guy likes the song with lots of woes.
Yeah,
but I think the narrative, Romeo as a character, it's obviously implying, a romantic, a lover, and so just the story of this guy who might be good looking and has all these, perceived, good life, having these struggles, and the other character wanting to get with this girl but not being successful and able to, and like wanting to move in when a couple breaks up. Like that's a very common thing that happens in life. So I buy this narrative. I think it's great.
I'm not dissing on the story. I'm dissing on how it's written.
I'm dissing on the story.
I think the story is great. I think it's
boring and uncompelling.
I think it's written well. I think I care about all the characters in it. I love the rhyme scheme. And yeah, the chorus is, I could see it being a little bit hokey, but the catchiness makes up for it. Where, there's the Kiss song, Hide Your Heart, which we'll get to later in the podcast, where they've got that, hey, hey, hey.
Why are we going to talk about Kiss?
But that part of the chorus isn't words, but it's just catchy and it's a good hook. And so I'm fine with, not having real words if the hook is good enough, and that's how I view this song. So I completely buy into the lyrics, buy into the narrative, and I'm fascinated in the characters. I love the song. Surprise.
Yeah, I think it's really strong musically. The music of the song really carries the weight of it. But yeah, I just find the lyrics really uncompelling. Like, I don't really care who anybody is in this song, and there's too many characters, honestly. Like, there's what Romeo has to break up with this girl, and the narrator immediately tries to date her, but then she starts dating somebody else instead. There's just like too many moving parts.
I'm sorry you can't keep up with that, Steve.
I mean, I'm able to follow it, but it's...
No, this is great.
You know, there's a lot of fat in this story that could be trimmed.
I disagree. I think the fact that you can have this compelling narrative in such a short space is a testament to Phil as a great songwriter. But not to just talk about Phil, one of the best solos on the album. Like, god damn, it's so good.
I think the narrator should be removed from the plot. If the narrator was replaced by Romeo coming back and finding that the girl had moved on, I think that would be a much better story.
I don't know. I like the different characters, but you know, let's let someone else chime in on this. Chris, what do you think?
I think this, what we just heard from the two millennials, is proof that their generation are black-hearted people who have no concept or understanding of true romantic love. Probably have never had their hearts broken because they're entitled not to have their hearts broken in a romantic relationship. I rank the song.
I don't know. Maybe we're just better at it than you guys.
Dumbest thing I've heard.
I rank the song as number 2 on my list. If this song doesn't tug at your heartstrings, you're dead inside.
I'm dead. I'm super dead.
I am super black-hearted and dead inside.
Weren't the two of you basically in an emo band together?
Nah,
yeah.
Not emo.
I like to think that we wrote better stories than this one.
You know, I like your guys' music. I disagree.
I've never heard any of your stories, but I can pretty much tell you that you haven't, because you're not going to get any better than this.
Look,
if I'm not getting any better,
you listen to that last stanza where he's saying, "In someone else's arms, lonely girl safely laid," and then that last line, "and Romeo pulled away," in combination with Phil's vocal. If that just doesn't yank at your heartstrings, there's something wrong with you.
I mean, if Romeo hadn't been written out of the plot in the first verse, I might be more invested in what happens to him.
Ooh.
Like verse 1 is Romeo leaves, and here's this girl.
You're assessing the song cerebrally. That's a failure.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, so what's wrong with that?
Well, but the thing
feel
is,
it from the groin, feel it from the heart area. Above the neck is not how this song should be consumed.
Yeah, this is. It's a song from the heart. Like,
look, my mind is ruled by Mars, man.
If you can't actually think about the lyrics and how they make sense within the context of the story, then it doesn't work. Then
I don't get how this doesn't make sense within the context of the story, though.
Okay, it makes sense. It's just not like he said. It just doesn't really. It doesn't. I can't have any kind of emotional attachment to it because there's nothing in there that is emotional at all. I find. Well,
do you attempt to insert yourself into the role of any of the characters?
No.
There are 3 dudes to choose from, ostensibly.
Yeah. Yes.
It's
actually, no. There's no guarantee that the lonely girl had fallen in love with another dude. There are, 4 characters total, at least 2 dudes, 1 girl.
Yeah. So if you put yourself into the role of Romeo, where if you've ever had to leave someone behind, like because you left behind a girlfriend because you moved, or just differences in life, or you
went to jail, maybe,
or if you went to jail,
maybe there actually is a plot,
or if you're just a guy, once again, I think all of us have had except maybe Steve Prime, girls that we've liked that were dating someone else, and we thought to ourselves, man, if they break up, I would want to be with that person because they're just, have a beautiful soul.
You want to be with that person, the person they break up with?
No, you'd be, to be with the girl. And this is a narrative that I think is so,
boring.
True to life, and I think fantastic.
Yeah, these clowns don't get it on the other side of the mic, and that's fine. Maybe after you get a little more life experience in you, you'll get it.
I mean, Millennial Steve is married now.
Yeah.
And also, his previous band was basically, 90% of the lyrics were about how upset you were over past relationships?
Only in the first album.
Yeah, first record, yeah. So, basically he's saying,
Let me say one more. Oh, go ahead. That's fine. Let me say one last thing about anybody who has a problem with the whole on his Onio bit. Okay,
yeah, I do.
If you have a problem with it, don't be one of these people who, on the flip side, just is unconditionally worshipful of the Leonard Cohen song Hallelujah. The shit he rhymes with Hallelujah throughout this song is some of the cheesiest shit ever. Oh. Yet everybody is just like, oh my God, that's the greatest American pop song ever. You can't criticize it. The shit he rhymes with Hallelujah in that song, cheesiest shit ever.
I agree with you. I think it's a cheesy lyrical song.
I like that song too.
It's just cheesy though.
It's so good. I'm sorry. I buy into that song.
I like that song. I think Onio is cheesy, but I don't mind it.
I mind it.
Yeah. Sometimes you gotta have a cheesy rhyme. It's not so egregious that I'm like, ooh, that doesn't work.
Guys, we listen to pop music.
Dude, it's just right. It's just lazy is what it is. It's like, I don't really want to take the time to think of a word that actually rhymes.
I don't think Phil was a lazy songwriter at all. I think that was all very intentional. And the thing is, the Celtic influence in his music is very strong throughout. And so I think what Bob Geldof said, that Phil Lynott should just get a tattoo of a shamrock on his heart because the man was so damn Irish and so proud of his heritage. So when I hear the Onio bit, to me, I just hear him calling back his Irish roots, which he is very proud of. This is a man who is so proud of all of his heritage. He is a proud Irish man and also a proud black man. So the way he brings in funk and soul and Jimi Hendrixisms into his music, but also brings in that Celtic spirit, to me, I just view it as Phil just being sincere and singing from his heart and soul, the way that the old Celtic singers of the past would sing from their heart and soul and make up random words that weren't there.
Needs more lyrics about leprechauns.
Dude, my problem with that, though, is that this is clearly not an Irish-sounding song, and there's no other reference to that anywhere. So that's why I say it sounds lazy, because if you know all of these things about the man, then sure, you can come up with that. I don't know anything about them, so just listen to it.
Well, that's why I'm explaining it to you.
Well, I'm just saying, but okay, but if you have to explain it, it doesn't work then.
I think it's the kind of thing where you appreciate it more once you dive into the band. When you realize how much, the song Emerald, if you listen to that and don't get it's about Ireland,
you're not a very smart person.
Right. This is clearly an Irish band, who, have great appreciation for their homeland. And, man, this is
or maybe he shouldn't be singing about an Italian dude if he's going to be using Irish affectations for it.
And I'm not saying he was a lazy writer either. I'm saying that particular line is lazy. Even the best writers have their moments where they're like, I don't know.
They just phone it in.
But I think also there's something to be said about just if the muse comes to you and you just feel that, you hear the hook in your head, and, he could have come up with a different rhyme for that, but I don't think it would have had the same impact. I don't think it would have been as catchy.
We wouldn't be talking about it right now.
And also, sitting on his own, that's what he's doing. The point of the song is, Romeo's heartbreak. And so I think just it drives it in, but also with that Celtic sing-along, when we were talking about A Night at the Opera, Queen, we were talking about, why am I blanking on, Love of My Life. And how when a crowd sings it together, it gives this sense of community and everyone feeling like a shared loneliness. But then you can deal with the heartbreak more because you know that other people are going through the same hardships as you. I think that Celtic spirit with that sing-along nature, sort of meant to be a pub song, functions in a lot of the same ways as Love of My Life does when it's live. So to me, I think it's absolutely brilliant.
The more post-hoc justifications Greg throws at this, the more I agree with other Steve. That, I hadn't really paid attention to the lyric, and the more Greg tries to justify it, the more I'm like, no, yeah, probably. It's probably just kind of a lazy lyric.
Kids that are older than me.
Yeah.
You old kids.
You old kids.
Really
I think he just did it because it was fun. I don't think that it was necessarily lazy. I don't think that it had anything to do with his Irish history. I don't think that he didn't give a shit. I think it probably just sounded fun to him. Goofy.
But I think that's
whether or not that works for you is a different thing. But I think we've put more effort in going back and forth on this than he did on the lyric. I don't mean that in a bad way. I just think he came up with it like, you know what? That's cool. I like it. Sounds good to me.
Well, what I'm saying is, I don't think he was intentionally calling back on his Irish heritage, but I'm saying that's just so ingrained in his blood, that music, where it just came out. So I don't think it was a conscious thing at all.
He just Irished himself all over the page.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
All right, can we move on?
Yeah.
Unless somebody else has
typical millennial. He just doesn't want to deal with things when he gets challenged.
I don't fight about it for another 20 minutes.
Oh, exactly.
Let's bicker about the EO.
I'm with him because we all have other stuff we probably need to do today. But amazing how the sensitive song has generated such heated debate. I love it.
And literally just 2 syllables.
There's an old expression, it's not a hill worth dying for. That's pretty much how
right.
So, you know.
I will build a mountain out of this molehill, and then I will die on it.
Oh.
Right.
Steve
Moving
hates
on.
cliches.
I hate idioms. It's like
I hate metaphorical speech. Everyone say literal things only.
No, I
Literally.
don't. I just these old phrases they don't mean anything. Well, I mean,
except they do mean things.
Well, they do mean okay, but
they
don't.
They're a linguistic shorthand, Steve. They allow us to communicate complicated concepts in a few well-known syllables.
No, it's another way of people being lazy.
Yes.
It's like I don't feel like actually coming up with my own words. So here's this phrase that somebody used 300 years ago.
Yeah, and it's a universal concept that everyone immediately understands what you're saying when you say it. So there's a purpose to it.
It's
right.
Steve.
You're
It's
using
lazy.
a phrase that somebody came up with to communicate a concept without having to explain it in so many words.
Because imagine having to explain every single thing in great detail all the time, or you can just do one sentence and someone's like, "Hey, I know exactly what you're talking about."
No.
Like
saving time and being lazy are 2 different things.
Yes.
So if you can say
Brad,
something to save time.
As a bassist, I fundamentally disagree. And a programmer.
Brad, can you believe these punks are going to be in charge of the world someday? I mean, what is going to happen to us in our old age? I don't know what to tell you.
I'm sending you to the shittiest nursing home I can find.
Anyway.
Yeah, let's hope so.
Our terrible diets will have killed us by then. So.
That's why nobody's backing down on global warming in the older generations. Like, I want to kill myself with pollution before the millennials do.
Yeah, I want if I'm gonna die, then everybody's dying, no matter what age.
All right, let's move on.
Yeah. So, speaking of hills to die on, next up is Emerald.
Oh, nice. I like the transition.
Yeah, I thought of it like 3 minutes ago and was just waiting for everyone to stop talking.
He's been constantly repeating his head. Don't forget.
Don't forget
that hill to die on comment. How long would we have had to talk before you would have had to pick a new joke just because it was too far removed?
You know what? I don't know how long, but I was holding out. Yeah, this is a classic staple of the Lizzy catalog. I remember one of my fondest memories of this song is watching VH1 Classic, and they had Thin Lizzy Live and Dangerous, the concert video on TV. And I remember during the solo section of this song where they're doing the dual harmony leads, Brian Robertson had a cigarette in his hand and was picking the song while holding the cigarette, like didn't even bother setting it down somewhere. And to me, that was just like one of the coolest rock and roll things I'd ever seen. Like playing, twin guitar harmonies, this badass rock song, holding your cigarette while you're picking. Like that's just so damn cool.
If you buy the Live and Dangerous Deluxe Edition 3-disc set, it actually includes the DVD of that whole concert. In much better quality than you'll get it on YouTube. Otherwise, I'd say just watch it on YouTube.
Yeah,
but it's worth it for the better version. Yeah, it's awesome. It's a great performance. Yeah, this track, Emerald, is the only track on the record that's credited to all 4 band members. Brian takes the first solo, Scott takes the second, then Brian takes the solo at the end. Just it's a guitar workout. If you're into that kind of thing, it's awesome. If you're not, it probably wouldn't work for you. But I dig this song. I had it in the middle of my list, but it is it's the metal side of Lizzy at the time. It's about as heavy as they got.
Yeah.
But it's it's just a great kick-ass guitar extravaganza.
Yeah, and just, phenomenal drumming from Brian Downey, just carrying this track, giving it that Celtic feel. This is, Phil wearing his Irish pride on his sleeve. And so the trick with Emerald is I like it a lot, but once again, this is in the Thin Lizzy battle song category. And there are other Thin Lizzy battle songs I like more than this. In particular, I think Massacre is probably the best in that category that they've done, where it's just, for me, Emerald pales in comparison to Massacre, and that hurts it a little bit for me. But this is still an absolute classic, a great cut. Listen to it all the time. Love it. It's, it's really great because it exemplifies that hard rock metal side of the band, but also exemplifying the Irish heritage of the band, which Phil was just so proud of. So I think it's a great song that defines Thin Lizzy in a lot of ways, but I can also understand why this would not be like the gateway Lizzy song for a lot of people, where if you're not like a big riff rock guy and are more concerned with lyricism, while the lyrics are great and cool, this one is for the rockers and for people who appreciate music from different parts of the world and really like that blending of Irish folk into this hard rock setting.
See, I think this could very well be somebody's intro song to Lizzy. This is my favorite song on the album, possibly my favorite Lizzy song. I like that gallopy metal kind of vibe that it has. And if you told me this was a Maiden song, I would probably buy it. It's got that sort of vibe. So if you have somebody who's coming from that later metal world, and you're like, oh, you should go back and listen to Thin Lizzy, this is a proto-Maiden song. This would be an excellent one for them to listen to first.
Yeah, and, the Lizzy, is a huge influence on Maiden. I mean, the twin guitar harmonies, obviously.
Right.
And, as I was talking about Massacre earlier, Maiden did cover Massacre, the Thin Lizzy song on the next album, Johnny the Fox. So, and that's, like I said, very similar in vibe, but I think the syncopation on that one is a little bit more interesting. I think the narrative's a bit better and just better hooks. But, trying not to compare the song to other songs that most of the panel hasn't listened to.
Right.
It's a phenomenal, just great, great, great rock tune. Chris L., what are your thoughts on this one?
Pretty much the same. I had it 4th on the list, kind of middle of the pack. It's
me too.
It's pretty much has been a staple of the Lizzy live set and all of their incarnations ever since it came out. So clearly the band thinks highly of it, knows the crowd responds to it, and is invested in the song. The call and response guitar soloing, obviously fantastic for a guy like me who's way into all things guitar. All the elements, the multiple riffs and chord progressions, and just the overall arrangement of it, and the kind of historical lyrics make it pretty unique, and just overall really a solid tune.
I thought the song took place in space.
Space Ireland.
Space Ireland.
So Steve
with
Edwards,
their space swords and shields.
You hate rock. Tell me about why you don't like this one.
I didn't say I don't like it. I just put it toward my bottom. Where did I put this? Third to last or something like that?
Yes.
Yeah, third
He
to
put
last.
it one place behind you, Greg.
Yeah, but
Okay, well then what the heck? You're like.
I'm being antagonistic.
What were those words, Steve?
Yeah, I don't have words.
That was like Romeo and the Lonely Girl.
Yeah,
You just
it was
made
like-
up words there.
Well, then it all fits.
Romeo
right?
sitting here on his.
I don't have anything to say about this. I don't know. I had to rank them, and I was like, all right.
Could you tell the band was Irish on this song?
I didn't really pay attention to that.
How did you not notice that? It's called Emerald, and then you heard the music.
I thought it was about...
They used the word Glen.
I thought it was about Wizard of Oz, so... I don't know. I didn't really think about the lyrics. I just, to me, I like this one less than some of the other ones just because everyone's saying how much they love all the guitar stuff. I was like not super, by the third solo, I'm like, all right, I've had enough solos. I don't want any more solos.
I mean, he does come from a pop punk background where solos are non-existent, so that makes sense.
There are solos. People do solos, but I like...
What's with these guitars playing thirds?
But I like punk and stuff too. Okay, so this takes place in the 70s. My favorite 70s band is the Ramones, so if that gives you any kind of idea of what I like, it doesn't matter, though. I'm just judging it by songs.
And in fairness, you only had a couple days to listen to
this. I had 2 days! And,
you're going full Jerry Seinfeld right now.
It's just, I was like, basically, it was on my bottom.
He's doing the arm motions, too.
It was really just, I was like, guitars, okay, more guitars, and I'm done, all right? I've had enough guitars, no more guitars. We're done. All right, next song, next on the list. We're done. I have nothing to...
Any other comments on Emerald?
The song's not a bad song. I just ranked them, and that was where I ranked it. So that's it. That's all you get.
It's all good.
All right, so next up on the list, Steven Smith is wrong about this song.
Nope, I'm very right.
Next up is the song that Steve ranked as the last place song, worst song on the album.
Absolutely.
The Boys Are Back in Town.
Dude, this is so stupid. Okay, so this, I will complain about this because this is, okay, there's a little bit of a weird experience for me because this is the only song I know from this album, and I'd heard it tons and tons of times. But the reason I've heard it so many times is because it's not even close. This is like, 40 times better than any of the other songs on this record, and for him to say it's the worst, it's ridiculous. It's the most dumb thing you can say.
No, Steve is absolutely full of shit on this, ranking this at the bottom.
The lyrics of this song really make me not like it.
All right, so Steve and I were arguing about this before the podcast, so now we're on mic, so I'm about to, put on the boxing gloves and get into this.
That was last week's episode, Greg.
Well, I mean, last week, this will be out like 2 months after that one.
Last 2 week's episode.
So, okay. So, Steve was arguing...
Should I explain my argument first?
No, explain your argument, and then I'll explain my counter-argument and why you're full of shit.
Okay, so I grew up in a small Midwest town where, this sort of mindset was kind of pervasive, that, somebody being back in town was a great big cause for party. And as I graduated high school and got the hell out of Dodge, going back, seeing this mindset is super depressing because there's nothing in town. There's no reason for the narrator to still be in town. Coming from a perspective of a 1,000-person town, the narrator should leave town. He should... maybe go back, schedule a visit with the boys, but, celebrating that the boys are back and we're having a great time. No, you're a sad, lonely man. Go move on with your life. Get a real job.
Dude, that's your prerogative.
Yeah, though, all right, so I'm going to counter that and why you're full of shit. So, first of all, it is a cause for celebration. They're there to visit family. They're home on holiday. They're going to visit the old places they used to visit. And, all right, I came from a kind of shitty place, too. I came from
Cleveland, though.
Right.
There's stuff to do in Cleveland. There's jobs in Cleveland.
Yeah, there's plenty of places to get stabbed and have a gun pulled out here in Cleveland. So, but, so coming from Cleveland, yeah, I kind of dislike my hometown and don't like to go back there very often. But you know what? It has shark seafood and deli, which is delicious and is a cause for celebration when I come back home. But Phil is from Dublin, which is just a great, fantastic city. And as I was telling you before the podcast, Phil is a guy who just had dreams too big for his hometown. He wanted to be a rock star, and he couldn't just do that by staying in Dublin. He was too big for his small town. But he sincerely loves Ireland, sincerely loves Dublin, would love, going to the old pub, visiting his mother, visiting Mama. Yeah, it's cause for...
My mom left to Cassville.
Well, right, but I'm saying, she didn't live in Dublin. She didn't live in a cool place. She lived in Cassville. So, yes, if you're looking at this as the boys are back in Cassville, right. But he's singing about Dublin. Goddamn Dublin, Steve.
Right. So, I grew up in, bumfuck Wisconsin with a bunch of people who are like, yeah, the boys are back in town. And, Cassville or, Lancaster or whatever other, Appleton, like all these random small towns, like a bunch of guys coming back from doing interesting things with their lives and spending the weekend going to the old bars and harassing women. It just doesn't sound...
All right, so
it's not as big of a party as they want to make you think it is.
All right, here's what's great about this song. Aside from the great lyrics that really paint a picture of the town with individual places and characters, you've got perhaps Phil's best vocal performance in the catalog. Fantastic, gigantic soaring chorus. You've got, a lot of swing to the verses in the guitar playing, and then you've got those big bombastic power chords. You've got the great guitar harmonies that Lizzy is famous for. And this is a song where, yes, it's overplayed, and I think there are better songs in the catalog overall, but to deny the quality of this piece, where it's just, it's part of pop culture. Everyone knows it. My 17-year-old stepson, who listens to, Hatsune Miku, Vocaloid covers of anime theme songs, knows The Boys Are Back in Town and likes The Boys Are Back in Town.
Does he have a good Vocaloid cover of The Boys Are Back in Town?
I don't know, probably. But it's just, this song transcends the band. Everyone knows it. Yeah. Most people like it to a degree, even if they're not huge on it. People sing along to it. People get excited when they hear it. And for me, it's a travesty that it's one of the few Lizzy radio hits, because I think they have a bunch of other songs that I think are on this level, like Waiting for an Alibi is a great example. I think Waiting for an Alibi is on the same level as The Boys Are Back in Town. And I think they should have at least 10 songs in classic rock rotation, as opposed to realistically the two. No one plays the Whiskey in the Jar much. It's really, you hear that on St. Patrick's Day, it's Jailbreak and The Boys Are Back in Town are the only two Lizzy songs you hear on the radio, and that's a shame. However, whenever I hear this on the radio, the few times I listen to the radio, I turn it up because I love this song, and I'm just so damn happy to hear Lizzy on the radio. They deserve it. It's a classic. You're wrong.
Honestly, if this song wasn't such a cultural touchstone, I wouldn't have as much of an issue with it.
Well, but you're not judging it based off the merit of the song, then. And
no, I'm judging it based on a number of contexts.
You're grumpy about its popularity.
But the thing is,
I'm grumpy about his popularity amongst sad douchebags.
Well, when you get to a song like this, it's not even a Thin Lizzy song anymore. It's a piece of pop culture at that point. So to say I don't like it because it's overplayed and I don't particularly agree with the lyric is completely invalid. No,
absolutely, it's a valid critique.
Because you're critiquing it off of your own life experience, which isn't really fair.
Yes.
I mean, no,
none of this exists in a vacuum, Steve.
It is fair that this song maybe doesn't resonate with you personally, but to deny a cut that just has that mass appeal, to me is just absolutely insane. And how long it's endured. This is a song that has endured the test of time and is just as relevant today as when it came out, and that's really impressive.
Because there's still sad people not leaving their hometowns.
But it's also, the people, who do leave and come back, they're the glorious warriors. They've gone out, they've traveled the world, they're back for a little bit. Yeah, they've done those drugs, and they're back for a visit, and then they're going to leave, and it's cause for celebration while they're there.
Here's the thing, dude. I don't like my hometown either, and I would never think it's a great thing to be proud of, so I don't personally relate to the lyrical content either, but just from a song perspective, that this is something that someone's proud of, that's fine. I don't have to 100% relate with everything that I like. That, with the melody alone, and by far this is the best hook of any of the songs on the record. So you're just basically throwing that all away because you don't like the context of the lyrics, how they align within your own life.
Let's let someone else get in on this, since we're us millennials are.
Oh, I'm sorry. Are we still on?
No. You could have just yelled over us at any time.
Yeah.
So I am an introvert, non-drinker, non-smoker whose worst nightmare is to spend 5 minutes in a bar with the characters in this song.
Right.
But it undeniably captures the life of those people. Those are real experiences that whether you identify with those people or not, there's a lot of those people out there. And as an exercise, if nothing else, he captured those guys who are every Thursday, Friday, Saturday night down at the same bar, smoking cigarettes, throwing darts, talking
Picking
bullshit.
fights.
I mean, that
My dad
he paints that picture. It's
Right.
there, right? It's just a great encapsulation of that experience that millions of people have, even if it's not for you or me. And it's super fucking catchy. So there's that too. It's got a really interesting chord progression that none of it is intuitive. I mean, we've all heard it a million times, so we know where it's going to go. But I think if you heard the song for the first time, you wouldn't really be able to know where those next chords are going to go, where he's going to go. It is a great vocal performance by Phil. Phil is not Freddie Mercury. His vocals are pretty limited, but this song perfectly fits his ability to deliver a song. So it's great in that respect. And like a lot of these kind of things, this was an afterthought of a song. They didn't go into the studio thinking this is going to be our hit. They almost didn't put it on the record. They kind of worked it up sort of at the last minute. I mean, it's funny how that happens. You hear this a lot about these songs that end up being iconic, that at the time they were just kind of last minute add-ons, or they were really apprehensive about if it was ever going to work.
Like Living on a Prayer, where they almost left off the album because it wasn't catchy enough.
There's there's endless stories of songs like that, and I always find that fascinating. How sometimes, what you're thinking at the time when you're writing and recording a song, like it's just completely different what it turns into when it gets out into the world. And Steve number 2 was correct that this song is now bigger than Thin Lizzy. It's part of a cultural thing. I'm a huge Todd Rundgren fan. The stupidest song he ever wrote was Bang the Drum All Day, but that song is bigger than him. Millions of people sing that song at sporting events, don't even know who did it. Doesn't matter. It becomes bigger than the artist. It becomes part of the culture. And to be able to write something like that, that's an achievement.
I really wish Lockjaw was his big breakthrough song. I think the world would be a better place.
Certainly be a stranger place.
Chris L.
You derailed it.
How do you feel about this?
I had it on my list at third from the bottom, again, simply because there's other songs, nothing to do with the quality, but there's all the songs above it are ones I just rather listen to. I've heard it a million times. Don't really need to hear it again, but it's not because it's a bad song. It's basically their Rock and Roll All Night. It's their signature hit. And it's a classic. There's no getting around it. I'm not a type of guy who would, be of the like mindset of these kind of douchebags returning back to their, place of their glory days to sort of try and relive that stuff. But like Brad said, it tapped into something that so many people can relate to, and then as such became a huge hit. It's a classic, plain and simple. So
finally, douchebags have their own anthem.
Oh, there's plenty of douchebags out there. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
I mean,
rock and roll is full.
You heard "Smells Like Teen Spirit."
Why? No, get out of here with that.
So, any other comments on this all-time classic, one of the best songs ever written? Steve?
Which Steve are you talking to?
The one who's wrong.
Okay, Steve, do you have anything to say?
No.
All right, moving on.
All right, I'm done talking about this crappy song.
Oh, damn it! No! All right. For listeners at home, that is a drop. I do not feel that way about The Boys Are Back in Town. If you just muted like the last 10 minutes and didn't hear me talking about the song and only heard that, that is not accurate. That does not represent my beliefs. Okay, so next up, coming in as the number 2 song on the album, we have Jailbreak.
You know, I think I accidentally ranked this one under Warriors instead of above it, which wouldn't have actually affected its ranking, but would have affected Warriors by 1, I guess. I think Warriors would have been a coin toss.
Right.
Yeah, Jailbreak's a good song.
I mean, this is, one of the best riffs in rock and roll. Incredibly simple, but just hard-hitting, aggressive, just badass, very cool. Amazing, great vocal harmonies on the chorus. Incredibly catchy, well-constructed, great playing. It's hard to even, wrap around the words with how great this tune is. I'll let someone else go because I'm sort of at a loss for words because it's so perfect.
Well, I do have a question, but based off all the other comments you guys were making earlier in this, was I supposed to know this song? Because I had not heard this song before.
Oh, yeah, it gets played on classic rock radio all the time.
He never listens to that.
It's definitely their second most popular track, but there's a big gap between the amount of plays that Boys Are Back in Town get in this one. But it was a classic rock radio staple in its day.
Yeah, not a hit, but it's a song that retroactively has been added to the classic rock radio playlist. So really, Thin Lizzy, at least in the United States, is basically a one-hit wonder, which is
pretty much that's largely how they're thought of here. I think they are much more. They were much more influential in England. We talked a little bit about Iron Maiden. There's a lot of bands that were inspired by Thin Lizzy. That they're all British bands, though. Not a lot of them. They didn't get a whole lot of attention over here in America. Part of the reason was because they canceled 2 tours. I don't want to detour this too much, but during the U.S. tour for this album, Phil got hepatitis, and they had to cancel the tour. Another drug-related upside, and also there was a tour.
Needles, kids.
Yeah, right. And there was right after that they had to cancel another tour because Brian Robertson punched his hand. He punched somebody, I think, and really damaged his hand or somehow cut it with a broken glass. Some bar fight incident, and he wasn't able to play. So there was another tour that got delayed. So they just, it was one of those things where all the pieces were in place for Thin Lizzy to be a big band, and mostly due to their own mishaps. Never really happened for them. But Jailbreak. Phil Lynott composition. This song had me about 10 seconds into it when Brian Robertson plays that little wah-wah thing that goes wow, wow, wow. That's it. I love this song already. There's no guitar solo on the studio version of this song, which is interesting for, kind of a classic rock, hard rock band to do a heavy song like this with no guitar solo, but there's no guitar solo on the studio version. I think there was a live one. That instrumental break where they throw the kitchen sink in, you've got the alarm, you got the air raid horn, you got the siren going. I love it. It's cheesy, but it's awesome.
It's a really good vocal delivery on the word break out there.
Oh, it's so good. There's so much swagger on this track. So much swagger.
Yeah, and one thing that popped out at me listening to this track on headphones, it's true for the whole record, but it's really noticeable on this. There's no reverb on his vocal. On most of the record, there's not much reverb on his vocal, which always makes things more intimate because instead of sounding like you're in a space, it sounds like somebody's right next to you, right in your ear, singing to you.
He broke out of jail and is now in your house.
He's in your face.
But it works so well with Phil because that's kind of his shtick, is how intimate he is with the listener and how much of his soul he bears. And it adds this layer of cool where, when he says hey, good looking female, come here. This is just the epitome of cool. This is just such a cool track.
What is up with him calling women female?
It's because they are?
I mean, yeah, I guess.
It's just a tough guy thing. He's just playing the tough guy.
To modern ears, that affectation sounds just super weird.
Yeah, that's like a thing you don't do now.
Well, sure, but if agreed. But if you're looking at
I mean,
70s
nowadays
and
you
80s
just call
rock
them
that
bitches.
way, right? You would have to write off
You
like
call them
9/10
assholes,
of the
Greg.
rock and roll catalog
It's true.
for the inappropriate treatment of women. So
I don't know. I feel like
I'm
the
not
inappropriate
supporting it,
treatment
but
of
I'm
women has just
saying.
shifted over to rap and hip hop. Like, and
Right. So,
I would say the thing that Thin Lizzy succeeds at much better than most of their contemporaries is like, yes, there's still the machismo rock swagger where like they're definitely not coming across as wimpy or like,
yeah,
you know.
and he's playing a character here.
Yeah,
Right.
which
Right.
I feel like that
That
lets it slide a
excuses
lot
everything,
better.
but yeah, he's playing a
Exactly.
character.
He's playing a guy who broke out of fucking prison. Do
Right.
you want him to be a sensitive guy eunuch like you millennials are these days? It's not going to happen.
Again, all right. I've been meaning to
No.
use.
You need to shut the fuck up when grown
Grow a
folks talk.
set, you too.
No, what I love
I didn't know you had that drop.
the most ironic
to me.
part.
Oh, I did.
The most ironic part about the whole millennial thing is that we're talking about a record written by a guy who's younger than any of us are right now. At the time, he was anyway. Yet it always comes back to, oh, you stupid millennials. Yeah, the older people who have that viewpoint usually only listen to music that was written by people who would have been millennials.
Yeah, but it was a whole different mindset back in the day. But off
You
track
have to
on
mature
that.
a lot faster
Exactly.
back in those days if you were going to kill yourself with drugs and hepatitis.
It's exactly what Brad said. He's playing a character, a guy who broke out of prison. Okay, what do you want?
Do you want Phil Lynott in
from
this song?
Individual?
Do you want Phil Lynott to break out of prison and say, you know what, I'm a hardened criminal, but I think we need to stop playing Baby It's Cold Outside because the lyrics might be misconstrued? Is that what you want from Phil Lynott?
I haven't seen a woman in years. I would like to run into them too. I can respect them.
No, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
He's playing a hardened criminal.
I mean, if this was the only instance of that, I probably wouldn't bat an eye at it. But he does it a couple times in this album. It's like, oh, that's
But
a little weird.
it fits in the context of the characters that he's playing.
Right, again, if this were the only time he did it, I wouldn't bat an eye. But because he does it again, it's like, this is a little bit of a weird way to phrase things.
No, I think it's cool. It's rock and roll swagger. It's that perfect sweet spot where a lot of Kiss lyrics just get so ridiculous where you think to yourself, there is no woman who would take that seriously. That is a terrible line. But when Phil does it, there's just this swagger and charisma to his voice where, you know, a girl would look at him and think he's kind of a bad boy and kind of want to approach him. And that's like why it works and why it's so cool. It's like the perfect sweet spot for a rock band and a rock vocalist. Like, for me, this knocks it out of the park. And Steve Edwards, not being familiar with this song, still ranked it at number 2 on the list.
Yeah,
So,
it's a good song.
yeah, despite not knowing its history or if its relevancy in the band's canon or on radio, like, objective listening, you know, new listener was still able to recognize what a potent tune this is.
Yeah, I had it at number 2 as well. It's just a killer song.
Yeah, I had it. Let's see here. 4th from the bottom. Again, you know, I've heard it incessantly. There's other songs on the album I'd rather listen to, but it's another classic. Brad pointed it out. One of the greatest 3-note guitar parts in the history of rock and roll, delivered by my man Brian Robertson. You know, the whole female debate will continue with the next song, where it's kind of delivered in a whole different context. You know, nowadays that line would be, "Hey, you person, I won't be objectifying. Let's go get a craft beer." Like it doesn't have the same impact because there's no testicular fortitude in there.
Oh, I have
So,
that one too.
That's the difference.
I need some balls.
But yeah, it's a classic again, and it's a timeless tune, and the second top song typically for most people, casual listeners, in the Thin Lizzy catalog.
Honestly, if I were to change one thing about the song, I would just make it a little faster.
Well, then just listen to the live versions.
Yeah, there you go.
That's
Yeah.
You know, you've got
Yeah,
Live and Dangerous.
Go listen to the Live and Dangerous version where they had literally 10 minutes earlier had their faces in a pile of cocaine backstage. Came out on stage and played this song. You'll get what you're looking for.
All right.
Trust me.
Yeah, this for me all-time great tune, fantastic riff, and it's the thing is the overplayed Lizzy songs I still absolutely love, and I still get happy when I hear this on the radio, and still get happy when I hear someone get into it. I remember when Steve and I, Steve Prime. With the shittier opinions, when we went to go see a band called the Proto-Men one year, and they opened with Jailbreak, I was the most excited person in the room.
That's pretty cool.
Where everyone else was just like, oh, they're not playing one of their songs. Like, man, I don't care. This is Lizzy. This is better than Proto-Men songs, so I'm jamming to this. So, I dig this tune. It's a classic. Once again, hard to rank these songs, but man, just so good. Ugh, so pumped. All right. So, because this is quote-unquote a concept album, every time we do a concept album on the show, as we get to the number one song, we figure out the narrative of the album, but in the order of our ranking. So Stephen Smith, I'm gonna need your help with getting me through this bullshit. But everyone else, feel free to contribute. All right, so running back, how does this story start? All right, Rockstar is reflecting on past failed relationships from outer space. So then he
it's the all my exes live in Texas of space.
Yes. So then Fight or Fall. So Phil, or Space Phil, as it were, is trying to convince his friends that they need to gather together for revolution to free northern Space Ireland from Space England. And so Warriors is them getting pumped for the battle by doing drugs. Then Angel from the Coast. I guess the cops are trying to catch on to the Warriors, but they successfully escape. And I guess Angel is a character who's from the coast. Then Romeo and the Lonely Girl.
It's probably the protagonist's reflection on the fact that he had to leave his girlfriend behind to go fight in this revolution.
Right. So Emerald is the revolution.
They burned down Space England. And claim back northern Space Ireland. And the boys are back in town. They're celebrating being back in northern Space Ireland. I mean, in that context, it's much more happy that they've successfully liberated their homeland.
Yeah,
but then apparently they get arrested at the end of it.
Yeah, I guess, or maybe Jailbreak is the space Brits getting arrested.
No, here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that they return back to town, they get drunk and start fights, and then they end up being arrested
for being drunk and starting fights.
And just they let their guard down, and the revolution fails. They go to jail, then they break out of jail, and then finally in the last song,
which is Cowboy Song,
which is them out on the lam.
Yeah, so they've escaped from
scatter to the winds because they're escaped prisoners right now. If they go back to society, they'll go back to jail.
They go to Space Texas.
So he's got to flee to Space Texas and Space Mexico to avoid extradition.
I like this plot. That's pretty good. That's a great concept album. So yeah, Cowboy Song. Number one song in this ranking according to the panel.
So where did everybody rank this individually on their list?
I think I put it about third or so.
I put it third. I put basically the staples at the very top. At least the three big staples. I didn't put Emerald as high up just because I have just sincere love for Running Back and ranked that really high. But my top three were Boys Are Back in Town number 1, Jailbreak number 2, and Cowboy Song number 3. But, I mean, that's just because of the competition. Phenomenal, fantastic song. Adore it. Chris L., you put this as number 1, and so did Brad. So you guys who grew up with the album when it was contemporary put this as number 1.
I had it at number 5. I can't really remember it very well. I had to go back and listen to it just now on my headphones because it was so low for me.
These punks.
Just curious because
he's just a poor kid.
Because
from
I
stupid
personally am
ages.
surprised that this made it to number one. It's not only my favorite song on the record, it's my all-time favorite Thin Lizzy song. I mean, the lyrics are
amazing.
I'd say it's probably
great.
I don't know. They're fairly cliched, but it doesn't matter because the riff is fantastic. The performance is great. This song, it makes me smile every time I've heard it, and I've heard it a bajillion times. I love this song. I love the corny intro with the harmonica. There's a harmonica in the background, as there should always be when cowboys are sitting around the fire. Always makes me think of the scene in Blazing Saddles where they're all sitting around the fire eating beans.
That just made the song worse.
Right.
Steve and I were just
that's a
talking
hilarious scene. What are you talking about?
I'm going to be
one of the
honest.
great moments in cinema.
I'm going to be a millennial and say I didn't care for Blazing Saddles.
Oh my god!
Don't go down this road.
I'm sorry.
Don't let him take you down this road, Brad. It's not
Don't
worth
feed the
it.
trolls.
This is
Don't
not a
feed
film.
The trolls.
This is not a film criticism podcast.
We've done that.
Yeah, we did the Rocky episodes recently, the Rocky movies recently, and that was a really great episode because those are great films.
Not enough fart jokes, though, I don't think.
Yeah, not enough fart jokes in Rocky 2, for sure.
That's the problem. No, just I super love this track. I love the harmony guitars. To me, it feels so uplifting. It fills me with joy just listening to this song. I love this track.
Exactly right. That's the same. That's exactly the same way for me. It's just like, to me, I never even realized that anybody ever considered this to be a concept album. I mean, you want to talk about another record company creation, it's probably something they tried to force through because concept albums were a thing back then. Who knows?
Right.
Johnny the Fox, same deal. Both those albums came out the same year. Who knows what the thinking was behind it? So all of that is lost on me. All I know is this song is about freedom. Just
that's on fighting, actually.
No, it's about freedom to live in Mexico and escape from space England.
No, I'm talking about the freedom to just live your life the way you want to live it, unencumbered by all the bullshit.
So is this a Gene Simmons song then?
Right.
He wishes.
Right.
So here's the trick: I'm full of snarky jokes about this song, and I haven't even gotten to any of mine yet. Greg's just popping them out one after the other.
And I do love this track. I'm sorry, Chris, continue before I derail things further.
No, I just think I love the way he takes that concept and connects it with the, being in the rodeo. It's like, to me, that's like a kind of a euphemism for running away and joining the circus. It's like, you know what, I'm going to go do this. I'm not going to have a day job. I'm not going to be tied down by the rat race shit that a lot of other people are tied down to. To me, the song is about freedom. Reminds me of the times when my band and I were out doing road gigs without 2 nickels to rub together. But God damn it, we were having a great time and we were happy. And this reminds me of that. And I would also encourage anybody to listen to, seek out the Peel Sessions. Brad, I'm sure you've heard that collection.
Yeah, it's been ages, but yeah.
Yeah. The version of Cowboy Song on that is the best version, in my opinion. There's just a little something extra in it from an emotional standpoint, from a performance standpoint. I would encourage anybody who even likes the song a little bit to go seek out that version. It's really good.
My personal favorite version of this song is the, I think it's 1979 with Gary Moore at the Sydney Opera House. That's
a good version.
For me, that is the greatest version of the song, and the way that it seamlessly transitions into The Boys Are Back in Town, which I know they did live on a lot of tours, but I think just the energy behind it, them feeding off the crowd really worked well for me in that context. So, Steve, I'm going to talk about the song for a bit, and feel free to interrupt me with snarky jokes, as is the usual format of our show.
All right.
So for me, this is just, a fantastic, great song, a kind of Leonard Skinner-esque in terms of a lot of the riffing, like has that sort of southern rock swagger to it. Phil is just really great about, capturing these larger-than-life mythic stories, where he, has a lot of songs about the West and sort of old Americana, and just being really fascinated with that kind of stuff, where he really developed a fascination for America and threw that into the song really well. I think it's incredibly catchy, great vocal. I buy the narrative. And also, the little bit in the song where he's talking about moving his fingers up and down, like, that is sexy as hell. And, like, that there are chicks listening to that who are thinking about what Phil Lynott would do with his fingers, and they've already melted at this point in the album because they've been going back and forth between the tough guy, bad boy they want to get close to, and then seeing his tender side. Like, by this point, man, the women are melting. Like, this is a damn classic, fantastic solo, and, I think we mentioned this on Gish when we were talking about that album, about how, you couldn't tell what songs on Gish were what because the lyrics and vibe of the song had nothing to do with the title. Yes, just moving past the chair jar.
Yeah.
Like, like, what... It's cowboy song. Like, unlike Gish, where you didn't know, like, what Siva was based upon the music or the lyrics, like, this one... It sounds like a cowboy song. It's called Cowboy Song. You damn well know what this is. And it's a, classic, great song in the band's catalog. This is one of the songs I used to bust out live in my Cleveland club days. So, yeah, great tune. Millennial Steve, how surprised are you that this won?
Well, like I said, I don't really remember this song, so I'm kind of surprised. But I'm not. I'll take it back because the obvious choice seemed like Boys Are Back in Town, but I knew that one of the two of you guys were going to be just opposite. You're going to be contrary just because you want to be, because you're just
really
shitty
not.
people.
I've
like
explained
that.
my reasoning,
and there's terrible reasoning.
I put this as third, and it's a great tune.
Yeah, I don't.
But also remember,
you've
only listened to it, a couple
times. Yes.
And I think we've talked about this before. When I listen to an album on this podcast that I haven't heard, I have to listen to it at least 4 times to let it sink in and really, focus on my listening. So when we do all those Pumpkins albums, yes, I'm listening to them for the first time, but I'm really, making an effort to at least remember the songs, remember the hooks.
Are you trying to tell me that I haven't made an effort today? Is that what you're saying?
No, you did. But I'm saying I understand.
Because it's true.
I understand. I understand you did this, very last minute because so many episodes you've been on, I've just talked about how much better Thin Lizzy is than whatever we're talking about. But... man, just a damn great song. And, yeah, you know what? Female. Great in the song, too.
My take on this song lyrically is that it's not about being a cowboy. It's about a black Irish guy's idea of what it is to be a cowboy. Ringo Starr was always fascinated by country music and cowboy movies, and I think that's sort of an Irishman's perspective on what it's like to be an American. This is an idealized view in a way. I don't think it's not really, you should really sort of take it literally, because Phil doesn't know he doesn't know anything about being an actual cowboy other than what he's watched in movies. But it's that idea of the freedom of the West and that idealized view of what it's about. And so I don't take any of the lyrics really literally in that sense. It's just some guy sitting 6,000 miles away on an island, imagining what the freedom of the vast Midwest must be like.
It's like when Europe wrote
That's all
that
I got.
song Ninja on the Final Countdown album. Like, they don't know anything about ninjas.
Yeah, I was gonna say like the harmonica leitmotif played by somebody from Ireland is kind of like, you know, basically every American song that uses that Aladdin do riff when talking about Asian people.
It's kind of like that. It is kind of like that. It is
probably a little less racist.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's about being evocative. It's about trying to put your head in a particular place, and it's an easy way to get you there.
Yeah.
Whether it's you know, the snake charmer for India or the harmonica for the cowboy campfire. But it's just, I mean, to me, musically, the song is just joyful in a way that it's really difficult for me to explain, but I love this track. Scott Gorham takes the first solo. Brian Robertson takes the second solo, and I believe he's playing it with a wah pedal, but in a cocked wah, as we like to use that expression, where you set it at a particular spot, so you've got a very narrow tonal range. I think that's how he pulled off that tone on this guitar solo, but it's just everything about it. The guitars are great, the drumming's great, the vocal performance is excellent. It's just a great track.
So speaking of metaphorical lyrics, everyone knows that in cowboy songs, lonesome means horny, right?
Yeah.
All right.
I have no idea.
Lonesome on the trail.
The lonesome on the trail.
You're listening to 70s hard rock, dude. Yeah, it's horny. And, you know, at least it's honest in its horniness.
I don't know. I feel like that particular phrasing is often used a little bit dishonestly. But, you know, again, Phil Lynott is, you know, sort of doing his impression of cowboy music. So, like, the American artists who, like, wrote country music that says, I'm a cowboy and I'm lonesome. Like, all right, we know what you mean by that. Whereas Phil is another step removed from that.
Right. I mean, Springsteen has written these kind of songs.
But yeah, I mean, you know, I don't even know what more needs to be said about this song. It's a classic. It's a great tune. This song I have heard a couple times on classic rock radio, and by a couple I mean 2 times in my entire life. So got very excited both those times I heard it. But yeah, this is just a fantastic album. I want to go around the panel and get our thoughts overall in terms of, you know, did you like the album? You know, how you felt about it overall, and were you happy and / or surprised with the ranking? So I'll go first. Yeah, of course I love this album. Have you been listening for the last hour? Yeah, it's great. I love it. Was I surprised with the ranking? A little bit. I was very surprised to see how much Running Back consistently ranked at the bottom for everyone. And not super surprised that the top 3 were the top 3. But, yeah, I mean, overall, happy with the ranking. Love the album. Great album by one of my favorite bands. Millennial Steve. You go next.
I don't want to answer this question because I'm going to be hated. I'm not surprised by the ranking because just along with my just few listens I've had, all the songs are pretty much the same caliber with the exception of, I think, Boys Are Back in Town is by far the best, and I thought Warrior was by far the worst. Everything else kind of fits so well interchangeably that it didn't really matter what was ranked in any certain order. As far as my personal taste, will I delete this album off of my iTunes iMusic list? Probably. Like, it's not really my thing so much, but it's not bad. I'm not really into that style of 70s so much. Like I said, the 70s kind of stuff I like is more along with the Ramones and the Clash. But it's not bad songs. Like, if somebody had it on and I was in the car with them or in their house, I wouldn't be like, shit, this piece of junk. I'd be, that's fine, that's cool. But I'm not gonna like seek it out on my own. None of these songs are bad songs, but not my favorite band. And yeah, that's the. hopefully the least offensive I can put it, because I don't think they're a bad band at all. Like that's just not my personal taste.
Do you see why this band appeals to me so much in my sensibilities? Because you and I, when we've done episodes in the past, you've noticed the similarities we have in our musical opinions.
Well, because the thing that you and I usually have in common a lot is hooks and that certain type of songwriting. So a little bit yes and a little bit no, because the hooks on this album I don't think are super strong. I think that the guitar elements is probably the strongest point of these collection of songs, and maybe the lyrical content to an extent, but definitely not the vocal hooks. So I am surprised by that, because, I mean, wouldn't you say that the vocal hooks aren't what you would typically go for in other music?
So the trick is, this album in particular, while I like it a lot, isn't my favorite Lizzy album for the reasons that you're mentioning, where I do like these songs, but there are other songs on different albums where there's more consistent focus on the vocal hooks as being strong. So we did this album because it's the most popular Thin Lizzy album. It's their breakthrough. It's the one most people know. But I feel if we had maybe done Black Rose, which is much more about the catchy chorus on those songs, I think you'd probably get it a bit more. And this is like another layer to the band, where maybe like Adore isn't as instantly accessible as Siamese Dream, but you still like Adore. That's kind of how Jailbreak is, where I still think it's brilliant, but it's honestly, I don't know if this would be the Thin Lizzy album I would start most people off with, just because, you know, if you're a guitar rock guy, then yes, this is a great album to start with. But if you're more of a pop vocal hook guy, I might lean more towards Bad Reputation or Black Rose, just because I think the vocal hooks are a bit poppier and stronger throughout the entire album.
Yeah, and that's where I lie, and that's why even as a Smashing Pumpkins fan, I'm not a big fan of Gish, because like we said, there aren't any hooks on that really. So yeah, that's why this wouldn't really be something that I would go back to on my own personal taste to listen to.
All right, so Wrong Steve, how about
Older,
you?
wiser Steve, as I like to say.
Older, wronger Steve.
It's a pretty good album. I don't think having listened to it, having sat down and done a dedicated listen through, it'll fundamentally change my listening to of this band. Like, there's the songs that come up on my Pandora rotation that I like, and that's really is generally as much Lizzy as I need. I'm a little bit surprised that I didn't spoil Boys Are Back in Town farther down the list. I guess that's what happens when you have 5 people on the panel, all of whom share the same wrong opinion. But yeah, that's a solid album for the most part. One song has a lot of baggage, I think.
So, Brad, how about you?
This is not my favorite Thin Lizzy record. That would be Bad Reputation. I really love that record a lot. Of course, the live record, which we've talked about, it's a great record. Many of the songs on this record that are of the more harder rocking persuasion benefit from the live environment. They're much heavier, come across better that way, I think. But this is a pretty strong record. It doesn't surprise me that it's their biggest selling record, because it has one of their biggest hooky songs on it, and the rest of the record is pretty strong. Yeah, it's a record that I return to, not as often as others, but it's kind of a staple in my catalog.
And Chris, how about you? How infuriated were you with the millennial panelists, myself included? I know that you and I are both Lizzy fans, so how do I stack up as a Lizzy fan in your eyes?
Let's see here. How do I put this?
Greg, you're full of shit.
I think he's a piece of garbage. Just say it.
I would never say that about Greg Troyan, that he's a piece of garbage. My God, that's pretty severe.
That's so mean to the garbage.
Yeah. And you have a problem with somebody referring to a female as a female?
Yeah.
Oh, I can't justify the two in my brain.
Yeah, garbage is...
But
the trick is there's a subset of nerd culture that uses the word female in a way that's very sort of dehumanizing. So you hear it nowadays. You hear it in that context.
All right, that makes more sense.
Yeah, sorry, I probably should have clarified that the first time. That's why it sounds a little bit weird now.
Yeah, the rest of us aren't as big of nerds as you, so that's why we're just like, what are you talking about?
I don't necessarily agree with that. I just, sorry to get off on this tangent, but I think that's just what a lot of people use when they're being misogynistic and even not realizing they are.
Yeah, I hear you. It's just busting your balls, because that's what old people do to the younger generation.
They get mad when they call other people garbage.
Yeah, exactly. You know, we're sensitive people. I thought you millennials knew that.
Yeah,
anyway, back to the question at hand. I love Greg's enthusiasm as a younger guy who getting into Thin Lizzy or has gotten deeply into Thin Lizzy. I can see how the music can sound a little dated, both lyrically and musically. For me, it's of the classic lineup, which to me the classic lineup is Gorham, Robertson, Lynott, and Downey. Of the 5 studio albums they put out, this one is 4th for me. My favorite is Johnny the Fox. 2nd is Fighting. 3rd would be Bad Reputation. This would be 4th, and then Nightlife 5th. But, a lot of classics on here. The classic is on here, so it's definitely a great slab of 70s rock. And, Thin Lizzy was just a very underappreciated band in general, so any exposure that those of us on this panel or anybody else can give them is a good thing, in my opinion. So overall, I enjoyed the discussion.
All right, and how wrong were the other millennials? That was the one question not answered.
How wrong were they?
Yes.
Pretty wrong. It's hard for me to quantify it at this stage, but I would say they're pretty off base on a lot of stuff. But again, it also just reinforces the fact that when you take stuff from a bygone era and you try to consider it with modern sensibilities, it's kind of tough not to have a disconnect there. So I'll give them some slack for that, because that's a real thing. So.
All right, well, fair enough. So now is the part of the show where we do plugs. So, Steve Edwards, where can we find you and your music?
I'm not saying on this one.
Why?
Because nobody's gonna. My music doesn't relate to this.
So don't you have an album coming out?
Yeah,
right about when this episode's going to be out.
All right. So I'm in a band called Eye for None, and we have a record coming out January 18th. And look it up. It's I think it's pretty cool. But...
Yeah, it's catchy pop rock.
Yeah.
It's enjoyable. As we're giving you a lot of shit this episode, your band is good. It's very different than Thin Lizzy, but I think lyrically you have a very good band and very good hooks. So I think if you're just wanting to listen to some catchy music, give it a shot. It's pretty good.
Thanks. That's all.
Brad, where can people find you and your excellent show on the internet?
I do a podcast called I'm in Love with That Song, where I pick a song and we do a deep dive into it, listen to all the little elements, fragments, bits and pieces that make it a great song. I'm actually recording a Thin Lizzy episode coming up.
Oh, nice.
Probably will be out about the time that this goes live, hopefully.
We have 7 episodes backlogged, so probably not.
Do you?
Yeah, well, I've got about the same, so I expect it'll probably be around the same. It'll be February, March-ish, probably by the time it.
Yeah, yours are semi-weekly, so if we both have 7 episodes, it'll take about twice as long for yours to reach.
My question for you is: do you get into the music theory of the songs and
You don't know? Yeah, he does like a good version of those Richard Beato videos.
Dude,
yeah,
Rick Beato is my guy.
No, Steve and I have talked about this off mic. We'll talk about on mic. We said that basically Brad is doing Rick Beato right.
Dude, Rick Beato is amazing.
Well, Brad does it in a way where if you understand music theory, you can appreciate it, but you can also appreciate it as an average listener. He just, dives into the different components of the song. And unlike Rick Beato, who just tells you what it is, like, here's a diminished ninth. Like, Brad will tell you why that sounds good. Like, he will explain why it's pleasing.
I don't talk about music theory, and I don't talk about, this was recorded with a Neumann U47 microphone, but we do talk about the elements of a song, like how a bridge might relate to a chorus, or certain production decisions. I talk a lot about production, just where you use reverb, where you don't, how things sit in a mix and things like that, certain about performances, but it's geared for non-musicians.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's something I would actually like to do more, is like get into more of the music theory of it. With this structure, it doesn't bode well because you're ranking the songs. You got to get through talking about every song. You can't really dive too much into it. Right. But I find that very, very interesting for sure.
Well, I mean, I do like the structure of the show and the way that we do talk about each song on an album. But, what's great about Brad's show and about Chris's show is that they do a deep dive into the song and break up the individual components and talk about cool. each thing within them.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. That sounds awesome.
Both great shows. Speaking of Chris L's great show, Chris, where can people find you on the internet? The elusive Chris L that doesn't want to be found on the internet.
Well, I wouldn't go that far. That whole thing has taken on a life of its own. But we're Pot of Thunder, formerly a KISS podcast, where we actually undertook the task and completed the task of analyzing every studio track in the entire KISS catalog, which was upwards of 280 songs. So now we're kind of venturing down the road that Brad's gone down, and this Rick Beato guy have gone down, where we're going to do a song per episode by just a random band. Hard rock typically, but any genre is welcome. And we're going to have our listeners submit the songs, so they're going to send in songs they want us to analyze, and each week we'll pick one from the pile and we'll analyze it. So we're going to try and have that listener engagement element to it. So
And Steve, where can people find us on the internet?
They can find us at lipstickgeneration.com, and if you search for Lipstick Generation on most platforms, eventually you will find us after several makeup tutorials.
Yeah.
That's really where you want your music to be found.
Right, yeah, we should really try to get ourselves placed in a bunch of makeup tutorials.
Yeah, I think We're Here to Rock You fits really well with makeup tutorials.
Now you apply highlighter. Dun, 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 dun. Yep. Sounds good.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for the applause. I forgot you applaud yourself when you do the plugs. You don't applaud me when I do the plugs. I always forget that. All right.
I hadn't even noticed that trend.
All right. Well,
that was a good rehearsal. When we're doing the actual thing.
Are you ready to hit the record button?
Yeah, I feel like we make that joke a lot too.
Yeah, I'd make it every time. That's my thing, okay?
Oh, okay.
All right. Well, that's our episode. Bye, Internet.
Postscript.
Yeah.
So, Greg, why don't you explain what we have going on here?
So, I figured, all right, we're doing a Lizzy album. We should drink something appropriately Irish. But I'm straight edge, so I only have whiskey on St. Patrick's Day, so I wasn't about to break the edge again. So I got us Irish cream sodas from Kroger.
Private Selection Irish Cream Naturally Flavored Cream Soda. Enhanced with sweet Irish cream flavor. The word cream is on here an awful lot.
It needs more cream, I think. If there's something that I don't like together, it's Irish and cream, just for the name, not the taste.
I don't know if it actually contains cream. It contains natural flavor, whatever that is.
Right. It contains natural Irish.
It contains the Irish. All right.
Cream of that.
Let's do this thing.
Oh, that didn't make nearly the sound you wanted.
That didn't make nearly enough noise. What a terrible bottle.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, you want to get you gotta get the sound. Oh, oops.
There you go.
Hear the sound of bottle caps falling on the floor.
Are we chugging it or something?
No, we're just drinking and chatting postscript after the Lizzy episode.
If you ever get it on. Oh, there
I got it. There you go.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Tastes like cream soda.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, good cream soda.
You know,
more Irish.
The thing about doing an episode where the band's actually good is it's not as much fun. Honestly.
It's true.
Like
our Smashing Pumpkins albums were episodes where everyone's mad at each other all the time.
Yeah,
those are some good.
You gotta
content.
you've got to have people that just can't agree at all.
Well, I mean, there was a pretty good discontent between the two of you and Chris L.
It's true. He was very mad.
And I think Brad
ran
was
out of drops about being mad at people for being a different age from you.
Right. I mean, I think Brad probably had the same opinions as Chris, but he just has that. He has that like NPR soft voice where he's like going to disagree with you, but just try to keep the interview going. You know. But, hey, I'm glad you finally gave it a shot after me ranting about the band for so many episodes. So, on I Am One, do you hear that part where I think it sounds like Thin Lizzy? Those dual harmonies on I Am One?
Oh, yeah, well, so basically you're saying anytime there's a guitar harmony, like a guitar lick that's a harmony, or are you saying that specific part? Are you?
Well,
how are you saying that it relates
tends to a lot
it?
of, like, walking guitar lines playing thirds.
Yes.
Okay.
The two guitars are walking past each other playing thirds. I feel like the band that I listen to the most that sounds kind of like that is Arch Enemy. If you've ever listened to much of their stuff.
I haven't listened to
there's so many bands that have done it. And so, like, when people say Wishbone Ash did it first, they did, but they weren't doing thirds the way that Lizzy did. It sounded very different. So, like, Lizzy was the band that popularized that sound, and you got it in bands like Iron Maiden, Megadeth, Metallica. And, a lot of metal bands took that influence, but unfortunately they lost a lot of the swing and just became, like, way too aggressive, and I think lost a lot of the charm of the band. Like, the dual harmonies are cool, and I like it because I like Lizzy, but it's not, like, the main hook of the band. The main hook of the band is Phil as a songwriter, and then just I came to like dual harmonies because I just heard them so much on Lizzy albums. Like, it's not like that's the thing that grabbed me in.
So were you saying that the band continued after Phil died? Is that what you were saying?
So
sort of.
What happened is
a new vocalist.
So what happened was Phil was the bassist and main songwriter, and
main vocalist.
Yeah, there was only I think like one track where maybe he shared lead vocals with Eric Bell, cruising in the Lizzy Mobile, which is an obscure B-side, and then Gary Moore has sung some stuff with Phil Lynott on his solo albums. But yeah, he's basically the singer. Thin Lizzy broke up after their Thunder and Lightning albums. That was like 82, 83. And he died a few years later when he was like working on getting a new band together. And in like 89, they had like this unreleased Phil demo. And they released it as like the final Thin Lizzy song and released a greatest hits album with that as the final Thin Lizzy song. And then the surviving members like reunited and did like some tours as Thin Lizzy. And so there was a guitar player named John Sykes who was one of the guitarists in Lizzy, and he ended up singing. So it was a bunch of guys who used to be in Lizzy like through the various years playing together. And then eventually a lot of them like moved on and went and did different things. And when they were going to record a new album, they changed the band name because they didn't feel it was proper to the legacy, because like Phil wrote pretty much every single song in the catalog. Yeah. Like he is either the sole writer or a co-writer, and pretty much every track except for like 2 covers. So he is the band is him. And then they changed the name to Black Star Riders, and the first album I really liked a lot because it really sounded like Lizzy. And then the second one was produced in Franklin and has like the kind of like crappy side of the Nashville sound, and so I'm not as into it. Like there's a couple good cuts, but most of it is like a skip for me.
What time frame is this?
This is
this was like 4 years ago.
Yeah, they do like a new album every couple years. So like 2014 I think was the first Black Star Riders album, and then they did another one like 2 years later.
We
and then
probably
another
just
one.
don't like it then because they're older dudes and they're probably just playing like soft like.
No, they're. It sounds a lot like Lizzy. So sort of the problem is, like Lizzy for me, like Phil is a very creative spirit. And goes a lot of different places musically, where there's some tracks that sound like jazz, there's some tracks that sound like flamenco. Like, it's a very varied catalog. And the first Black Star Riders album had a lot more of, like, his lyrical spirit. But then the second one felt more just like a generic, like, blues, country, rock band. And it lost, like, the creativity. Like, it didn't take as many risks as original Thin Lizzy would. And also because it's produced in the modern context.
Yeah.
It's like... it's so obviously like the drums are on a grid and it's too tight and too professional, and it sort of lost like some of the swing and looseness and energy, where it sounds like a bunch of hired gun pros playing good songs very competently, but it sounds too much like hired guns. Like Brian Downey, the original drummer from Lizzy, he isn't in Black Star Riders. And so it's a bunch of guys who became the touring Thin Lizzy lineup, and the only guy who was like in Thin Lizzy proper was Scott Gorham, who's like the main guitarist. Like, they had the original guitarist Eric Bell, and then they became a 2-guitar band after that because Eric quit in the middle of a show, in the middle of a tour, and Phil was like, I hate guitarists, I'm going to have 2 guitarists in case someone pulls that shit again.
I hate guitarists, so I'm doubling down.
I'm doubling down.
Yeah,
but, in case someone, flakes out or is an asshole. So he got Scott Gorham and Brian Robertson, and then Brian Robertson was an asshole and left, and then Gary Moore came in and left, and then Snowy White came in and left, and then John Sykes came in, and then the band broke up. And there's a keyboard player come in, but no one talks about him. But Scott Gorham was like the one consistent who is, as soon as he was in the band, he never left. And so he's the guy who is like one of the main guys in Black Star Riders. So there is that direct legacy. And the guys, like, on the first album they really tried to capture the like essence of Phil as a lyricist. And, it's really hard to do when you're, taking on the legacy of this dude who is, unknown in America, but, like, for, like, classic rock fans, like, they're considered, like, one of the peak bands for, like, guys who are super into the genre. Mm-hmm. Kind of like, I don't know, like, maybe a lot of people, casual music listeners, don't know the Pixies, but if you're a big alt-rock guy, like, you obviously have a lot of respect for them. That's kind of what I would compare them to.
Yeah. So it'd be like...
They were a classic rock band that insisted that Kims don't overperform.
There you go. But yeah, like honestly, like, I had mixed thoughts on doing this as the album to do, but it's the most popular one, so it's going to get the most downloads. But for me, like, in terms of, I think, musical quality, I'd probably rank this towards the top of their catalog, just because even though there's things... like, I'm not as into musically, like, songs without choruses that are more just riffs. I recognize if you like that kind of stuff, this is a higher album, but this is maybe like, I don't know, maybe like 5th or 6th place in my personal ranking of the catalog. But if I'm viewing it in terms of quality, I'm probably putting it 1 or 2.
Should have done Black Rose.
I mean, yeah. Like, Chris L and I have argued about that, where he's like, how do you like Black Rose more than the classic lineup stuff? I'm like, I don't know, because it's better.
It's got good songs.
Yeah.
I was looking at some of their other discs, and they're like, that's the other one that I know half of the songs to already.
Yeah, and Black Rose, I mean, that's mainly like deep cuts, but you've heard those deep cuts, and like you like those.
Sorry, the cream soda's getting to me.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to handle. You gotta be a man for the cream soda.
All right, well, Steve, talk about Black Rose for a sec, I guess.
I don't know. So again, it's a bunch of songs that come up on my Pandora rotation, but there's a couple of them that like. Thumbs them up them, and I enjoy listening to them.
I mean, Toughest Street in Town. Talk about a hook.
Toughest Street in Town is a good one. S&M's pretty cool. I like that one just has a very different tone than a lot of their other stuff.
Well, the thing is, like, they have like, the thing is, they go through a lot of styles very well, like, and seamlessly move through them. Like, there's a song off of I think it's off the Renegade album called Fats, which is like this cool, like, kind of jazzy tune. Like, just doing all the different stuff. Chris sent us a picture of the dogs.
Got a picture of the dogs.
Oh man, he's got 4.
He's got like
tiny little dogs. He's
like all
4
the
little rat dogs.
Yeah. Oh.
Chihuahuas and sweaters.
And sweaters. He was making fun of us, and he's got his chihuahuas and sweaters. All right.
Yeah, we're killing the Chihuahua sweater industry.
Millennials just aren't buying Chihuahua sweaters.
Oh my gosh! All right.
All right. What else is on?
Black
Rose.
But yeah, Black Rose. That one works really well as a concept album, even though it's not.
Well, it's got that suite at the end, right?
Right, but the suite at the end is actually, it stands out because basically every other song on the album is about like these gritty urban situations.
Yeah.
And so it
Waiting for an Alibi. That one's on that one. That one's a good one too.
That's fantastic, and that's also the album version really annoys me because the first version I heard of it was on the Dedication album, which has the additional third verse, and that third verse makes the song for me. Where just the lyrics are way better, and it gets to this crescendo, and then you realize, like, that's the entire point of the song.
Just like the national anthem.
Right, just like the national anthem.
Well,
without
third verse is always the best.
Yeah, but like, man, like that's like the emotional climax of the song, and so when I hear like the album version would cut it out, it pisses me off. And like before they did the album, they were just playing like new songs live, like, hey, this is going to be on the next record. They played it with the third verse, and it blows my mind that they got rid of that third verse because it's just like such an emotional climax.
Well, usually that's a producer decision to try to make the song more radio friendly, but
yeah, and I mean
for something like this, it doesn't, because back in that time frame, that wasn't that much of a consideration.
Well, I mean, they brought it down. The album version and the single version ended up being 3 minutes and 30 seconds, and it was a big radio hit in England and Ireland, overseas.
And that's probably the reason.
And so, and like, it is one of their catchy songs. You'd actually probably like it quite a bit. Like that, honestly, Black Rose you would have probably liked way more than Jailbreak, being completely honest. And
although,
like,
do anything you want to, I'm pretty meh on.
Look, it's a really catchy song about believing in yourself and following your dreams.
It's pretty okay.
But you know why I'm into that shit.
I hate that.
I hate believing in myself.
I hate anything with any kind of like hope.
I hate hope.
Millennials killing hope.
Yeah.
We killed hope. We killed the diamond industry. Next, we kill the hope diamond.
Yeah. I mean, we're killing, like, what are we destroying? We're destroying, like, Olive Garden and Sears and all the important things.
Napkins.
Napkins. I mean,
restaurants.
Straws.
Napkins really should have died. Like, paper towels are just, like, the better version of napkins.
I haven't heard this thing about napkins. Are you serious? Like,
yeah, like millennials aren't buying napkins for home use.
Oh, for home use? Well, yeah.
Why would you when paper towels are a thing?
Yeah,
right?
Doesn't make, yeah.
Shoot, my wife is not a millennial, and she's on my side about that. Like, yeah, why would you buy napkins?
Like, if you give me a napkin that I can conveniently divide in half with a perforation, maybe. No.
I use both, so I'm helping out. I'm helping out the baby boomers.
I use cloth napkins that Greg stole from an Olive Garden.
Ooh.
Doing his part on a couple fronts.
Doing what I can. Stole them when I was still working there. Really just, like, accidentally took them home with me and then
borrowed them forever. That's all.
Borrowed them forever. Just like that Santa suit I borrowed forever from Olive Garden.
Let's see how many crimes we can admit to on my...
Olive Garden has Santa suits?
I was the... They would have, like, a company Christmas party, and so I would be the Santa Claus for the kids. And, then just...
and then he grinched out and stole Christmas.
Yeah, well, no, basically...
so now kids
we came to... I left. I was asked to leave because you know how I permanently injured my wrist working there.
Yeah.
And should have sued for workers' comp, but just wasn't on the ball. And so they asked me to either take a demotion or leave. And so I opted to leave, but I still had the Santa suit in my car, so I just never brought it back.
So was that a situation where, like, the kids would come sit on your lap and they'd tell you what you want for Christmas? You'd be like, well, here's a fucking breadstick. You would just, like, put
no, there was this was at the time when I was in Manpower, and we played a convention in Pigeon Forge, and for some reason they were just giving out like a ton of Street Sharks comics, and so
okay,
and so
I ended up with a bunch of those.
Yeah, and so I brought back just like a ton of Street Sharks comics. I gave some to Iggs and all the Hessler guys when we went to go see them.
Yep.
And Iggs is just super into sharks, so he just thought it was awesome. Like,
I want an iPad and an iPhone. And you're like, what about? How do you feel about Street Sharks?
How do you feel about a comic based on a cartoon that was popular when I was your age?
Well, but the thing is, but the thing about Street Sharks is like they just look cool. And so if you don't know anything about it, you just get like, oh, this looks cool. And so the kids appreciate that I gave them a gift there. And then I said, I'll do my best to get you the gift for Christmas that you asked for. But in the meantime, here's this. Like, I gave them a present while I was there.
But first, let me talk to your parents, see how much money they have, and then we'll just turn.
Let me give you this comic book and a breadstick.
Yeah. That's really all you can ask for.
I mean, honestly, if Santa's at the mall were handing out breadsticks, I'd be like, shoot.
Yeah, they'd be like, this is better, dude.
Hey, Santa, what I want for Christmas is bread.
They're like, well, I got this coupon for $5 off your next visit to Olive Garden, too. How about that? They're like, yay, Santa. You're my favorite Santa.
So yeah, I'm done with my cream soda. It was pretty tasty.
Yeah. It was creamy and soda.
It was less fizzy than most cream sodas.
It was not very I don't like, because usually carbonation can make me like, it'll make me burp and stuff a lot too, like you. And I don't feel a lot of carbonation from this. So the Irish know what they're doing when it comes to
non-carbonated cream soda.
And
the Irish
1970s
in Ohio.
Music.
The Irish in Ohio, in Cincinnati, Ohio, at Kroger headquarters.
Oh, is that where Kroger is based out of, Ohio?
Yep.
I think it was somewhere in the South. Because Kroger is pretty
Southern
much
Ohio.
Yeah. I mean, it's basically like, it's on the border with Kentucky. And, I could go into the reasons why Cincinnati is a shit city. As I went, when we were on tour, and I shit on every city in Ohio.
I've never been to Cincinnati. So
it's shit. As is every city in Ohio.
I don't know. Columbus is pretty cool, I thought.
Man, do I want to?
Did we play in again?
We played in Canton.
Canton, Ohio.
Canton's very tiny.
Canton.
Canton's very, very tiny. There wasn't a whole lot going on there.
Now, if you were singing "The Boys Are Back in Town" about Canton, Ohio, yes, that's embarrassing.
Yeah. Right, exactly.
Yeah,
that's the kind of thing I'm talking about.
But remember, I'm looking at it from Phil's perspective. He's from Dublin. Dublin.
Have you even? We don't know. None of us have
Dublin.
never been to
Dublin might
Dublin.
suck.
We don't know that Dublin's terrific.
They have a Phil Lynott statue. It has to be great.
But that's like Inception or something. That's like
I guess that puts them, one step above, whatchamacallit, Detroit, where they can't even get their RoboCop statue going.
Yeah.
Oh, shit. And what was the point we were making anyway?
Dublin is better than Canton, Ohio.
Oh, so you don't like Columbus either?
It's like any city in Ohio.
I don't. Columbus is actually it's a fun party city, but it's a little bit too douchey for me.
So, have you been to most of the cities in Ohio then?
Yes.
Okay, so for New Year's, I'm driving to Springfield to see my friend play. I haven't seen my friend in a couple of years, so I'm going to surprise him. I've never been to Springfield. I'm assuming, I know it's a college town. I assume there's probably not much going on.
Yeah, there's not much going on there. The thing is, I've been to Springfield and I don't remember it.
Yeah.
So that just tells you everything you need to know about Springfield, Ohio.
I've been to Springfield, Missouri, and that's the same thing. It's just a tiny little college town that not a whole lot else is going on.
Yeah, I remember Springfield being like generally uninteresting. It's one of the most uninteresting cities in Ohio, so I'll give it that.
Yeah.
Isn't that sort of the nature of Springfields?
I mean, I guess
they're just sort of uninteresting,
they're everywhere.
Small cities.
Like pretty much just about every state has one, and nobody really cares that much about them.
Didn't they figure out what state the Simpsons Springfield was in?
Oh, the guy admitted to it.
It's the Indiana one, right?
It's the Oregon one.
What? I thought it was Indiana.
Yeah, no, because that's where he's from.
He's from Oregon?
Yeah, I think it was.
Matt Groening?
Yeah.
Oh.
Maybe? I don't remember which one.
I mean, that makes sense because, like, if you look at the demographics of the state, like...
Yeah, it's true. There's very few non-yellow people.
Yeah.
Like, that Springfield yellow.
Well, no, I'm saying, like, in terms of, like, the, like, high redneck population, like, once you get out of, like, Portland and Seattle, it's, like, all, like, insane, dangerous rednecks.
Right.
So,
and, not quite extant laws about how black people aren't allowed to own property and things like that.
Yeah, so...
Those birds are flipping out there.
Oh, yeah, they are.
Bird again.
I think they're upset about Steve's opinions on Thin Lizzy.
They're like, the birds are back in town!
Yep. Dude, why don't they attack you because of your shitty opinion?
Yeah.
That'd be impressive.
But like last place, seriously?
Yeah.
But the thing about that though is it's for someone like myself, it's almost impossible to objectively rank any of that. I mean, really, for any of us, it is because it was already a massive hit before any of us had known who this band was. Like you said, even you had known that song like way, way before.
Yeah, even before I was a fan of rock music, I knew the song.
So it's how can we take something that we've heard since we were tiny children, whether we realize it or not, it was always in the back of our head that is this thing that's this resonant part of culture, and then rank it with all these other songs that we've never heard before.
Right.
Like, how can you do that?
It is difficult. I think the way that Chris did it was fair. Is like, how likely does he want to listen to it?
But that's not really fair, though, because it's not. He's not because that also plays into. He was saying, "I've heard the song a lot. I don't need to hear it anymore, so I'm going to put it toward the bottom."
But even him hearing the song a lot, I think he still gave it 3 or 4 points. So even having heard like the listener fatigue, was still not able to rank it at the very bottom.
No, because there's Warrior.
I think Warriors is cool.
Anyway,
of the world.
So I think we've just about finished up these sodas. So any other thoughts on our postscript?
Are you putting all of this in there? You're not putting all this in there.
Yeah, this is the bonus.
Dude, this is gonna be like 3.5 hours long.
Split up into 2 episodes. This is like the bonus features. Us sitting around drinking Irish cream soda, still bickering about this album.
Have you considered doing what I said like 3 months ago, where you just get like a little webcam and to actually film us when we're talking about things?
That's really up to Steve.
Yeah.
I mean, we
the
really...
downside is it wouldn't get our
guests. I think...
And it'd mostly just be me fidgeting with this thing all the time.
I would say I'm kind of open to us doing, like, reaction videos to songs, just because those are honestly more feasible than this podcast. I think it's a good format for a show and leads to good discussions, but, you know, what's hot right now is someone just, you know, going like, oh, I can't believe this song!
It really is,
I've never heard Bohemian Rhapsody before!
I know, yeah.
And, like, that is absolute bullshit. You've heard Bohemian Rhapsody before. Like, I've never heard this song. Like, no. You're a liar. You're doing
that with their mouths?
You can sing with your mouth now?
That is absolute bullshit.
But reaction videos are very popular.
They are very popular. And, you know, the thing I talked about doing with Steve is doing rocker reactions, because I do look like your stereotypical rock guy, long hair, leather jacket. Have me react to the latest Cardi B song.
Yeah.
And be like, all right, so wait, people are complaining about my lyrics? Okay, hold on.
But Greg, Gucci Gang, Gucci Gang, Gucci Gang, Gucci Gang.
That is an important point. I don't think I'm ever...
I can't counter that.
I'm done.